the Fantasy Six-Pack Hour. With your hosts, Joe Bond and AJ Applegarth.
Touchdown!
All right. Welcome to the Fantasy Six-Pack Hour. My name is Joe Bond, founder of FantasySixPack.net. With me, finally joining the show. Thought you were going to be ready. He doesn't have his earphones in. Thought you were going to be ready, AJ.
I did too.
What happened? Yeah. Maybe, yeah. I have an excuse. My ceiling is about to collapse in my basement thanks to water.
Yes.
Good times. I'm ready to do a podcast and forget about this for a little while. But yeah, tonight we are going to be jumping into the AFC West and doing our draft guides there for all the teams. We've got two great guests here. I'll bring them on in just a few minutes. But before we do that, want to remind everybody, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave those. What are you doing? So noisy. Jeez.
Then
anyway, yeah, hit that subscribe button, leave those comments. We appreciate it. And of course, jump over to fantasysixpack.net where you can get access to our award-winning rankings, our draft cheat sheet, our projections, a whole lot more. And then during the season, DFS and betting advice as well as some other stuff. We do baseball and hockey and basketball and a whole bunch of other things as well. So and our Discord is sitting there for you so that you can ask your custom league questions directly to us and get that custom advice strictly for you. And yeah, jump over to fantasysixpack.net/plans, become an all access member to get access into that. We have a 2-week free trial available right now for you to test drive everything. So go ahead and jump over and do that. And of course, you know, while we're talking fantasy football, can't forget, let's we gotta start our leagues over there on Fantrax. Everybody, like this is the new place to play. It's kind of under the radar. Like, it's really known for dynasty baseball, and it's great over there. We ran a couple of leagues last year on Fantrax, and I thoroughly enjoyed the system over there. And you know, I know the big thing, right? And I still got to get our league going, but the college fantasy football, you know, this is something that I really want to get into. I know AJ I'm not gonna have to twist your arm too hard to get into that one, but you know, now that the Hokies are looking like they're not just gonna get run over by everybody.
Yeah, not so much the jokies anymore, so should be good.
Yeah. So, all right, you want to bring on our guests while we're here?
Yeah,
and
let's do it.
Let's get into things. So first, let's bring on, I'm trying to do 2 or 3 things at the same time here, so let's see if I can do it all. Mr. Pat Fitzmaurice, friend of the show. What's going on, man? Managing editor over Fantasy Pros, Betting Pros, rankings experts over there as well. How's it going tonight, man?
Doing well, Joe. Thanks to you and AJ for having me on. You know, I almost just randomly going through the t-shirt drawer this morning. Almost wore the same t-shirt that AJ has on right now. Wouldn't that have been embarrassing?
I literally grabbed it like 10 minutes ago. So
yeah, and Joe, by the way, like backdrops like this, not only good for branding, but also good for hiding the water damage that's behind it. So you might want to look into that.
Nice.
Yeah, it's over there. Hopefully it does not make its way over here. If that happens, I think I don't know what I'm doing.
I'm running the show at that point.
I'm moving.
Yeah.
Just we're gone. Anyway. All right, second guest here, Mr. JJ Schultz of Fantasy Six Pack. Does a lot of our dynasty content over here. How's it going tonight, man?
Oh, it's going pretty good, man. I'm excited to talk a little bit of football feel like I've been like so deep in like dynasty stuff. I'm excited to kind of take a step back and just kind of talk about like, football and redraft a little bit here. I'm going to get a little bit of a reset, and it's awesome to be on here with you, Pat. Big fan of your work. So man, life is good right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Great to be on with you, JJ. Looking forward to this.
All right. So let's just jump right into things, shall we? So we got a little screen share action going on over here. Again, Mike usually helps with all of this, so excuse me for the delay. So yeah, there we go. Got the AFC West Draft Guide here. So we're starting with the Chiefs, and we got to start with Mr. Travis Kelce. Look, last year, going in the first round in most drafts, didn't really live up to that expectation, right? I got the reason why. I just was not really trying to buy a tight end in at around 1 draft cost, but so be it. He is now going ADP wise, he's going as tight end 2 behind Sam Laporta. But it is a significant drop in draft costs. He's going 28th overall, early 3rd round. Laporta's going late 2nd round, roughly. Do you think, Pat, we'll start with you. Do you think Kelce deserves to be drafted that high or maybe higher? Or, what's your take on Kelce this year?
So I think right now his ADP is like 28th overall, and I think I've got him 31st. So I'm a little behind the market on him, and I do have him behind Laporta at the position. One thing I kind of worry about is that last year we saw him play, I believe, a snap share of 77%, which was like the lowest since his 2nd year in the league. And I wonder, especially now that they've got some other competent pass catchers around like Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown. I wonder if maybe they don't do more of like the Greg Popovich thing where they're resting the load maintenance on their old veteran, getting him ready for the most important games of the season in the playoffs, because I think the Chiefs are reasonably confident. They've pretty much owned the AFC West during the Andy Reid era. And, since they're a heavy favorite to win the division again, I want to say they're like, minus 270 betting favorites or something.
Yeah, this division's not looking great outside of Kansas
City,
so.
Yeah. So maybe they just continue that trend, and maybe that 77% snap share goes down to like 73, 74 this year. So I'm not really, for a while, like Kelce was the answer at tight end. It was either get the sure thing at Kelce, and there was appeal to drafting him in the first round. Like, now the position's deeper. Kelce might not be quite the majestic fantasy prospect at the position he used to be. So, I guess I'm fading him. Probably will not be drafting a lot of him.
JJ, what about you, man?
It's interesting. I agree that I feel like 28 is a little bit too early. I do still feel like he should be the 2nd tight end off the board, but I feel like 28 is a little bit too early. And if that's where he's going to be, I'm not going to have too much of him this year. I can remember last year when you were kind of talking about Travis Kelce being a pass in round 1, and I'm just being like, ooh, they're going to roast you. But I agree.
And they did.
I agree with you. You looked great on that one, but I feel like it's going to be more of the same this year. I mean, I do still feel like at the end of the year when we zoom out, he's going to lead the team in receptions and yards, but I feel like it's going to be a little bit more up and down. I mean, you saw what they did going out, getting Hollywood Brown, investing early in Xavier Worthy. Like, they want to be able to spread it out and do a little bit of the Popovich thing, like Pat was saying. So yeah, I think tight end 2 is probably right, but at 28, that's a little steep for me. I think that name value is still carrying him a little bit too much. And so, yeah, I will probably be passing on that price, but if I can get him like mid to late 3rd at that point, then like, yeah, I'm okay taking a swing at that range.
I think for me, I'm not taking a swing at any of these guys. Like, they'd have to fall pretty far. Like for me, like, even though Scott Fish, right, is tight end premium, I was kind of, I was eyeing the tight ends, but they go so early. But Mark Andrews kind of slipped. It's almost like my live draft mates just like forgot he was there or something. And he fell to the 4th round. And I was like, ooh, okay. That kind of thing. Like if that happens, it happened last year in King's Classic for us. I think it was actually also Andrews, and whatever, he got injured, can't go, can't knock the pick because of that. But it's that kind of stuff where if somebody were to fall like a round or so below their ADP randomly, then I'll go after it. But these guys just aren't. The one thing I found was interesting is that in half PPR, Laporta and Kelce actually averaged the same fantasy points per game last year. It's just that Kelce played 2 less games. Laporta was so touchdown heavy. That's the thing that gets me with him. It's like, is he going to be able to replicate that again? And, we saw a down year with Kelce in touchdowns, in my opinion, right? And so, yeah, I think we all can agree Kelce's on the back end of his career. So maybe he doesn't get back to where he was, 2-3 years ago, right? When he was just so dominant, right? I don't know if he really is tight end 2. I still think he could be tight end 1 pretty easily because I do think Sam Laporta, touchdowns are hard to replicate. Ask anybody in the NFL, right? Like the top touchdown getter from the year prior usually isn't the same guy the next season. So is Sam Laporta going to be able to do that again? I'm not so sure he can. He's going to have to step up his game in other areas in order to do that, and that's a pretty crowded offense to where we just said it, right? Kelce's not really competing with a whole lot. He's still going to be the lead pass catcher for this team. So I'm not going after either one of these guys. But if I had to pick one, I'm taking Kelce for sure at his ADP.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you guys said. I'm likely passing on Kelce this year, and unless somebody just sleeps and sees something else and then they decide to do whatever. Not really sure, but all right, let's jump into our next question here, and that is with Mr. Rashee Rice. So, JJ, we'll start with you on that. With Rice likely getting suspended this year, how do you think this wide receiver room is going to shake out without him there? I mean, you're looking at the new signing of Marquise Brown. They drafted Xavier Worthy. Plus, they still have Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. Justin Watson is there. I honestly like him better than those other two. So what do you think is gonna happen with this receiver room?
I think it's going to be a little bit of like a wide receiver by committee, honestly. It's kind of like we were saying, it's going to be spread out. I think that after Kelce, it's really going to be week to week on who has a hot hand. I think all 3 of these guys, especially when you're talking like Kelce, Brown, and Worthy, and then when Rice is there, which I don't think it's going to be more than 6 games. I think it's more likely going to be 4. But I think it's going to be spread around each week, but they all kind of work perfectly together. You have Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown, who they went out and got. They got that speed. They can stretch the field. Rashee Rice was awesome working near the line of scrimmage on the shorter stuff last year. Of course, Kelce can take over the middle. So I really think it all kind of works together. And Mahomes is a guy that he's not going to force anything. He's going to take what the defense gives him. So I think it's going to be different guys. It's kind of be like the hot hand every single week. And outside of Kelce, I think it could be tough to count on any of these guys, on a weekly basis for anything more than like wide receiver 2 or flex production.
Yeah, Pat.
Yeah, it's so first of all, I don't know for sure. Like I haven't totally concluded that there will be a suspension. Like I think Drew Davenport, who kind of covers a lot of the legal stuff, I think Drew said he thinks it's like 60-40 that Rice does get suspended, but it's possible this stuff doesn't get adjudicated until later in the year, and maybe they put off the suspension until 2025. Which would kind of make things pretty messy, frankly, with this wide receiver group. But let's say we do see him disappear for a few weeks, 4 to 6. I mean, JJ is probably spot on with a 6-game suspension. He had that unique role where he did operate really close to the line of scrimmage, and so many of his catches were like just little wide receiver screens or little hitches and stuff. Like I think it might be Xavier Worthy who plays that role, because really for the University of Texas, it was kind of Adonai Mitchell as the deep guy, and really it was Worthy as kind of the short area intermediate guy. So I wonder if they might have Worthy running sort of the route tree that Rashee Rice ran, even though, which seems kind of weird for the guy who ran the fastest combine time in history.
Yeah.
But like, he maybe is more of a catch and run guy than a field stretcher, which I think is Hollywood's role. So it's going to be really interesting. I mean, I don't know if you guys have settled on a favorite guy at cost. I mean, like the Rice suspension thing, like, I mean, if Rice doesn't get suspended, he's getting seriously under ranked right
Yeah.
now.
He
Which
has
is
been
almost,
falling.
yeah, and that's kind of made me grab a couple emergency shares in best ball just in case. But yeah, at cost, it's an interesting proposition. I mean, I guess I maybe like Hollywood the most of the bunch, but
I mean, Rice's ADP right now, I'm looking it up, and consensus between Sleeper and Yahoo is about mid-7th round. Feels a little pricey for a guy who we just literally don't know right now.
True.
Like, how much we're getting for him. That's you're still looking at some pretty decent guys going around him, I feel like, and I think I'm taking a stab at it. You know, Marquise Brown's only going like a half a round ahead of him. So Calvin Ridley's not, you know, he had a pretty boom bust year last year, but like, would you rather have a guy who, you know, health provided is going to play 17 games, or Rashee Rice in, who knows, right? And for the same draft cost, you give me Calvin Ridley all day. So
Yeah, I mean,
but
great.
Godwin's right there too. You know, Deontay Johnson. I feel like Carolina. We've talked about their schedule being fairly easy, and they're kind of a garbage team, you know, on the rebound. But in my eyes, that means that there's going to be a lot of passing going on in that, you know, in their games. They're going to be behind. They're going to have to catch up. So Deontay is a nice target right there in that same kind of range as both of these guys. I think of the group, I'm excited to see what Hollywood can do with Mahomes. I think, you know, this is a really good landing spot for him. It's you know, not that he hasn't been in good organizations. You know, Baltimore's a well-run organization as well. Arizona, not as much. But, you know, I think it's a fresh start for him, and I think he's going to be able to make some waves early. And if he does, then that could help, you know, build that rapport with Mahomes early and that trust. So, Pat, you're right. It's going to be a mess either way we look at it. So, you know, and Mahomes doesn't shy away from just going with a different guy every week. It's kind of that, you know, that Bill Belichick mantra that you just, whoever feels like they're going to show up this week, we're going to ride them until, you know, they're tired, worn out, and then we'll figure something out for next week.
Yeah, I mean, if I have to pick one, it's Hollywood. I'm right there with you, AJ. In fact, I did in Scott Fish. You know, he kind of fell, and I was like, you know, I'm gonna have to take. I want some of this Kansas City offense somehow.
Yeah.
And so it was like, absolutely, I'm gonna take a stab there. I think I got him in like the 10th round. It was granted,
late.
I know
it's
super flex and it's tight end premium, so 10th round, but I still felt like that was a pretty big bargain. You know, I shy away from the rookie receivers in this offense. I know Rice had a good year at the end last year, but like the beginning part was like worthless. He was unusable. He was unrosterable for much of the season until the very end. But Marquise Brown, I mean, yeah, AJ, you said it. Like he's in the best situation for him in his entire career. He's got the best pure quarterback he's had ever. So I'm very curious to see what he can do. And it's very possible we'll be talking at the end of this year saying how undervalued Hollywood Brown was. I really do believe that it is a that's a discussion that I would not be shocked that we have. So anyway, moving on here to our next question about Mr. Pat Mahomes. So look, he struggled last year. I mean, no doubt about it. He finished, I believe he finished like QB 12 or something around there.
QB8,
but
I think, is what they have on Fantasy Pros.
What was it?
QB8.
Yeah, so it was QB8, but like his points per game might have actually been like 14 or something like that. Like it wasn't great.
I can get that for you right here. He was 12th in points per game.
I had it up, and then I lost my screen.
Tied for 12th with Justin Fields and Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, so like, but he's being drafted as like, obviously, he's being drafted upwards of like a top 5 quarterback again. Do you still see him as a draft set and forget top 5 QB, Pat?
Yes, bounce back coming. He had Justin Watson as his most reliable downfield receiver last year because, again, Rashee Rice was running like really simple routes close to the line of scrimmage. Now he's got 2 guys who can help in that regard with Hollywood and Worthy. So I think he is going to bounce back a lot. Like he was really hamstrung by that wide receiver group. Like they were just, kind of amazing that they won the championship with that group because I think the front office probably realized like, oh man, we can never try that again. Like we can't just skate by at wide receiver. We actually need some talent. So let's sign a guy. Let's draft a guy. Lesson learned. I think it's going to be a lot better. And plus, Mahomes does add like a little bit of rushing value. He's not a total zero in that regard. He's not, a statue like Kirk Cousins or Matt Stafford back there. So, I think QB1 is actually going to be in play for Mahomes this year.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. Like I have like my notepad with a bunch of notes for all of our questions we're going to go over. And this one says, is Patrick Mahomes still a top 5 quarterback? I just wrote yes. Like
check.
All right. So you're saying we gave you a layup. All right.
Yeah.
I hear you.
I think he is as well. And, like I just talked about with the different weapons this year. And again, I think that was kind of part of what fed into the Belichick thing. I don't think I've ever had a show where I've mentioned Belichick this much in, this short of a span of time. I'm almost sick thinking about it. But just that mentality, because he really didn't have great options. And Justin Watson, like you said, Patty, he was consistent. So that's where he went with the ball. I don't see him having to do that. I think Watson's still going to be okay this year. More of like a safety net for last ditch efforts, but with the talent they have around him. And if Rice doesn't get suspended, that mess just adds to him, Mahomes, being able to just pick and choose wherever he wants to go with it. And I think it's going to keep him in the top 5 for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys. I do think there's a bounce back coming. Just to play devil's advocate, though, like because he isn't one of the like heavy rushers, like he does run, right? But he's not Lamar. He's not, these guys who can just, he's not Josh Allen, right? That does make him touchdown reliant. And when last year he wasn't able to throw, 35, almost, 40 touchdowns, he plummets down the quarterback rankings pretty quickly because those guys who can run can easily pass him, with just a couple of good rushing games, So there is something there. And, I was looking at kind of some of his stats. Like he's had multiple years with multiple rushing touchdowns. He had actually the most rushing yards in his career last year, but no rushing touchdowns. And I think some of that might come in to play with Pacheco being like a factor, like in the red zone, right? And so he's able to kind of make things happen in there for him. And there's been a long time where the Chiefs really just haven't had a guy they can super trust. I mean, CEH wasn't really that dude, right? Like kind of fake this all out there for a little while. But, Pacheco is able to kind of get some work there. And it always had McKinnon, who's no longer there. But I just feel like there's Pacheco's a little bit more of a reliable, kind of power runner like that. And I think that's exactly where we are going next, AJ.
That is, we are going right into this running back room here with Pacheco. He has yet to finish as the RB1 in his 2 years here. So, sorry, my question won't highlight for some reason.
As an RB1.
Yeah, as an RB1 in his 2-year career. So do we think that he's finally primed to accomplish this year with McKinnon finally out of the picture? JJ, what do you think?
So I don't think he's going to finish inside the top 12. I think he's going to finish right around that like 15 to 17 mark when you look at it overall. But what I will say is I'm okay rolling into a season with him as my RB1 if I punt on running back early in the draft. I do think that he's going to provide enough value that you can get by with him and then another guy that's going kind of like a round or two later there. One of my better calls last year was that Pacheco was going to pick up a good chunk in the passing game, jumped all the way up to 40 catches for 290 yards and a couple touchdowns. I think that that's here to stay. I don't think that was fluky. So I think that's going to give him a little bit higher of a floor. So you can feel really good about him as like a strong RB2 or like I said, a punt RB1 there. But no, I do think that when you're looking at just straight top 12, I think that's a bit lofty. I think that 15 to 17 range is probably where he settles, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Pat, what do you think?
I feel like he's a guy who could maybe give us like a sneaky top 5 running back type of season because he's got that role pretty much to himself. I mean, they're going to spell him a little bit. The offense should be, with what they've added at wide receiver, should be better, and they're probably going to score a lot of points this year. That gives Pacheco double-digit touchdown upside. I mean, he hit it last year. I could see him getting to 15 if things break right for him. And as JJ was just talking about, like he's shown us he can be a pretty good pass catcher, and he kind of looks good doing it, like pretty smooth. I mean, like my only concerns about the guy are like he runs like he's trying to break a door down, basically, and I worry about longevity with that rushing style. But other than that, there's really not much to dislike. And I think I've got him just outside my top 10 at running back. And every time I look at my running back rankings, I'm like, man, are you really sure you want to leave him outside the top 10? Because everything else seems like it lines up pretty well for him.
Yeah. Joe, any other thoughts on Pacheco, or you good?
No, I mean, I actually have him at RB10 right now. I need to go back and do a pretty fresh, clean sweep of my rankings before camp start up here. They've been, not going to lie, they've been pretty stale for a while, but I mean, there's not been any news. So like whatever. Right. So it's he's right there around 10. And again, it's just for him, it's more like, he's going to be reliable. He's going to be more consistent, I feel like, than some of these other guys, to where like you could get like an Achane that actually ultimately finishes higher than him overall in the season. But you feel like Achane is going to get like 3 like 35 to 40 point games. And it's just going to like totally skew his like overall season value, because in reality, Achane is going to have a bunch of like dud games too. That was what he did last year. Right. And so those are the types of guy where at the end of the year, you're going to look and you're going to go, oh, but see, Achane finished ahead of him. Yeah, but like he wasn't usable like 9 out of the 17 weeks of the season, to where Pacheco was usable almost every single week. I'd rather have that than an Achane, in my opinion. I get the allure of Achane and like the sexiness of him, and like he's fast. He's explosive, and that Miami offense, but like, dude, the Chiefs offense is also really good. So just give me the guy who can just like plod his way into the end zone a few times, because Pat Mahomes gets him down to like the 5-yard line. They're just gonna hand the ball off to him, or like give him to like one of these little like random trick plays they do like within the 5-yard line all the time. That's the guy I want.
Yeah.
So
instead of Omaha at the line, they're just gonna scream door, and he's just gonna bust through it. Like, all right. Let's jump into Let's jump into the Chargers here. Joseph, go ahead and start us off.
Call me Joseph.
I did. I did indeed.
So like Dave Eddy over here. He's texting me right now. Like he doesn't know I'm doing a show. All right, yeah. So the Chargers. Look, down year for the Chargers last year. Very injured offense in general. Herbert himself was also injured, but the new offense, Jim Harbaugh's coming in. Offensive coordinator Greg Roman. What are we looking at with this offense? Like, there's been a lot of talk that like, oh, it's going to be a huge down year. It's going to be heavy running. So let's just start here. Justin Herbert, right? How does this new offense, what we're predicting it to be, how does this affect Justin Herbert's fantasy value? And so I've got some stats here on the screen just before you go into it, Pat. So he played 13 games. He was 12th in points per game last year, 8th in passing attempts per game. So the volume was there. The results weren't quite there with all of that volume. But, Eckler just kind of being a complete shell of himself, I really think hurt him. But look, this is like a brand new offense. So what's your thoughts, Pat?
Got him down at QB 16. I've got him down behind a couple of the rookies. I mean, Greg Roman offense could conceivably be top 5 in terms of run heaviness. Almost surely top 10. Like even if Greg Roman really let his hair down, I think like there's still going to be what would be like a wild cut it loose Greg Roman season where they maybe rank as like the 13th or 14th run heaviest team in the league. They're going to be really conservative. And I wish I had more confidence in Justin Herbert to like make a reduced passing load, I guess, where I don't know what he's going to average per game in terms of attempts, but I'm kind of worried that he has averaged under 7 yards per attempt the last 2 years. Like, I think he might be kind of overrated as a passer. Like, even in his first 2 years where he was kind of dazzling us, his YPA wasn't all that good. And like, not that YPA is the end all be all stat, but it is a pretty good back of the napkin measure of a quarterback's basic passing aptitude. And so blend like a mediocre YPA with a run heavy offense. And it's not really a guy I would want as my QB1.
Yeah. Well, I wonder though, like you bring that up. So does his yards per attempt have something to do with the fact that he had Keenan Allen, right, as his wide receiver 1, who is phenomenal, right? But catches a lot of short routes, right? And then he was dumping it down to Austin Eckler an absolute ton. But like, it worked, right? Like that's what those two were two of the best in doing it that way. So I think I hear your point, and there's a lot credence to it, but I do think there is a little bit of that was just the offense they ran too, right? I mean, we know Herbert could sling the ball, but Mike Williams could never stay healthy or catch half the stuff he threw down the field to him. It felt like.
Right. Yeah. It has, in fairness, it has been kind of a ball control offense, and he hasn't always had OCs doing him favors. Joe Lombardi, like that's not the guy who's going to bring like the most out of a quarterback. So I get it. That is a valid point for sure.
Yeah.
JJ.
For me, man, this is one of the few times where I'm just like, I feel like I'm really going against the grain from like common sense and like what everything the general consensus is, but I don't know, man. This just feels like inheriting a Lamborghini and be like, you know what? I'm going to take the Bronco out instead. Like I don't see how you inherit a quarterback like that and then really ramp it in that much. I think of course, Greg Roman is, one of the better running coaches or one of the better coaches of running offenses the last few years. But I think so much that was built off of Lamar, and as great as Herbert is, he is not Lamar when it comes to running. He can move a little bit, but so I don't know. So even if they try to, they're trying to do the whole run heavy thing. I don't know if it works as well without Lamar there. And then are we sure that Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, are they even going to be able to stay healthy if they're trying to run it a lot? Are they going to be winning so they can keep running it a lot? Like, I don't know. I'm buying the dip on Justin Herbert here. I'm a big believer in some of the receivers they added this offseason. I think that he's a little bit underrated, actually. I got him at like 302 in a Superflex league, which is just like mind-boggling considering where he's going last year. So I'm going against the grain on this one a little bit. I'm buying the dip here. I'm just going to trust that the talent's going to win out. And even if they try to start running it a lot, I think after 2-3 games, unless they're just dominating, you're going to see that switch. He's going to go right back to throwing 30-40 times a game pretty consistently.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'm looking at here is basically just his overall consistency. Even though he missed 4 games last year, he was still in line, aside from yards, obviously, but he was still in line with a lot of his other metrics. His rate, his passer rating, his QBR, yards per attempt. A lot of this is all right there. It is falling, so that's what does scare me a little bit, to see that some of these things are trending downward. So I definitely feel like he could see a continued downward push with the focus on the run that Roman's going to bring here. But I'm okay with it. If he starts falling down draft boards, I'm okay still going after him and just building depth elsewhere, and hopefully that carries my team enough, that I can take a chance on Herbert, and hopefully he pans out. So, all right, let's talk about Mr. Eckler here, since he is no longer in town. Basically, they're replacing him with some more Greg Roman disciples, and that is Mr. Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. JJ, do we even trust either of these guys for fantasy this year? And if so, which one of them do you prefer?
I feel like trust is a strong word, but I am like cautiously optimistic about Gus Edwards. But I've been on the Gus bus train since he came in the league. It's just, is he going to stay healthy? Like when he's on the field, he's going to be productive. He's going to be a guy that gets all the short yardage. He's going to put up touchdowns. It's just, how long is he going to stay healthy for? I don't know. He's the one guy I'll buy here. In Dynasty, I like Kamani Vidal a little bit, but I don't know. That feels like a little bit of a trap. But Gus Edwards, cautiously optimistic. But I feel like the RB1 of this team of the future is not on the roster at the moment, most likely.
All right, Pat?
Yeah, I know what JJ is saying about Kamani Vidal feeling like a trap, but man, I feel like, and the thing is, his role is probably going to evolve over the course of the season. If he makes the roster, though, he's a 6th rounder, so we don't even know if he's going to make the roster. Maybe Isaiah Spiller has a great camp and beats him out or something, but Spiller at this point has done nothing to raise our hopes. I do think Gus is probably going to be the starter at the beginning of the season. We don't know what kind of a load he can handle. He doesn't really catch passes. Dobbins, it's such a bleak track record for guys coming back, running backs trying to come back from a torn Achilles. We've seen Deonta Foreman do it with some small degree of success. Cam Akers did it lickety split. He just hasn't been any good since coming back. Yeah. But Vidal is interesting. He is, I don't know, I didn't expect him to run a 4.46 at the combine. I thought he was going to be a lot slower than that. He's kind of got some versatility to his game. He's Troy's all-time leading rusher. He's really interesting, but I just don't know what kind of run he's going to get with Roman, who has a familiarity with these other two guys. So, this is definitely going to be an evolving situation, and one we've got this whole team, man. This is the mystery box offense of the NFL this year, really.
Yeah. Yeah, Joe, any thoughts?
There might be more mystery boxes in this division, but this is not one of the ones that I can feel like I'm predicting with a whole lot of confidence. And this run game is probably the huge start of it. Even though we're expecting a run heavy offense, it's who's the guy? I don't know. You want it to be Dobbins. Dobbins has all the talent in the world, but yeah, you're right. I don't know if he's gonna bounce back. So Yeah, JJ, you said it right. I feel like trust is a strong word. That's a good start to this. You probably should have stopped there. So we'll just move on unless AJ, you got anything else.
Go.
All right. So the Chargers wide receiver room is going to look very different this year too. No Keenan Allen, no Mike Williams, although they didn't have Mike Williams a lot while he was there. But Josh Palmer is now the de facto wide receiver 1 because he's the returning guy. Quentin Johnston comes back. Hopefully he can do something this year, right? As the former number 1 first round pick. Ladd McConkey, though, is the guy that is getting a lot of attention. Dynasty, moving up the ranks in Dynasty pretty quickly here. And the projections have him as the leading receiver, not by much, but at least definitely in targets here. So, Pat, start with you. Who's going to be the guy for Justin Herbert to rely on this year?
I think Ladd leads the team in catches. As far as yardage, I think Palmer has a chance to be the leading yardage guy, but Ladd's probably the favorite.
Yeah, I'm big on Ladd McConkey. I think that as long as he stays healthy, he's going to have a pretty good year. I feel like the receiving yardage production here is a little bit low if he stays healthy. But I think that he's going to do a lot for him. He's going to be that short yarded option. He's going to be able to create separation, give him a little bit of a safety blanket. I think that he's going to be the guy that leads the way, and they're going to run the majority of the passing game through. I think they're going to have to. I think it's going to be tough to count on QJ to kind of bounce back. Hopefully they get a little bit out of him this year. But no, I'm a big Ladd McConkey guy. I think Josh Palmer provides a nice deep threat. So I think this receiving core is a little bit better than it's giving me credit for, but there is quite a bit of upside here, or quite a bit of unknown, I should say, when Quentin Johnston's your wide receiver 3.
Yeah, I wonder, and I know our friend Keith Fleming, the Georgia boy, you guys debated on who was going to get this division, and he was like, you better promote Ladd for me. So I'm with you. Like, I think, does he kind of step into that Keenan Allen role that, like, I feel like that's the role they drafted him to play, right? And if that's the case, and he can even give 75% of that, that's amazing. And yeah, you're right. These projections would be vastly under the mark there for him. So he's the guy I want. I've been getting a lot more Palmer, though, because he's going
late,
drastically cheaper and almost like forgotten. Like, Palmer's been all right. Like, when those guys are hurt, Palmer's been very useful in fantasy the last couple of seasons. And so I've just been snatching up Palmer. Like, he's gonna be very useful as a flex type play and somebody you're gonna want on the back end of your roster for sure.
Yeah, Palmer is the one I like the most out of this group as well. Probably just because I haven't looked at Ladd much yet in my my early drafts, and someone's already grabbed him because he just seems like he's that hot of a commodity. I think he's got the upside for sure, but Palmer is what I'm used to, and that's the one. I mean, obviously QJ is returning too, but he didn't really move the needle much for me last year. So Palmer was kind of that guy who stepped up and had some big games when he was, healthy himself. He also missed some time, but I think it's going to be an interesting, it's an interesting room, and we could see this come down to a week to week changing of the guard, so to speak, until someone really establishes, that they're the guy and get that rapport going with Herbert.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's gonna be it for the Chargers. So, jump into our second half of the AFC West preview here, starting with the Raiders. And AJ, go ahead, man.
Oh, okay. I'm glad I get to start with this one and with this man because,
Kind of.
well, yeah,
Kind of his
kind
question.
but he's the first name on here. So Mr. Mustache himself, Gardner Minshew, is obviously the projected starting quarterback for this team right now. They still have Aiden O'Connell competing for this gig. But does this still make you believe that Davante Adams can be a wide receiver 1 this year? Pat, what do you think about Davante's prospects?
Maybe not high end wide receiver 1, but I think he could still do low end. He did manage to have over 100 catches last year with Aiden O'Connell, who, by the way, Aiden O'Connell attended the same high school my kids are currently attending now. So a little respect for Mr. Aiden O'Connell. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic on Davante, but I don't think it's going to be like anything like when he was at the height of his powers with Green Bay.
Yeah.
JJ? Yeah, I agree there. I think Adams is better suited as like your wide receiver 2, which I've got him as my wide receiver 2 in a ton of leagues this year already, and I feel great about that. So yeah, I think it's very similar to what you got from him last year, what I expect moving forward. I mean, looking after like Aiden O'Connell took over, I don't remember exactly what week that was, but like from week 11 on, Adams had, 14, 7, 16, 24, 10, 4. So, I mean, he was pretty good even with Aiden O'Connell, which I want to say I've been pounding the drum for all summer. At the latest, Aiden O'Connell is the starting quarterback by week 6 if he doesn't take that job straight out of camp. I do not buy the Gardner Minshew hype at all. That team got like rallied around that man at the end of the last season, and I think that he's going to take the job and he's going to run with it. So yeah, team Aiden O'Connell right here. Sam Howell too, for what it's worth. I think he does the same thing to Geno, but definitely Aiden O'Connell. I'm buying him, especially in Dynasty.
All right, Joe.
I mean, look, we see the stats here on the screen, and for those of you just listening, I'll kind of rip through them real quick. His first season there in with the Raiders, 180 targets, caught 100. The yardage and the touchdowns were the massive difference, right? 1,500 yards, 14 touchdowns, compared to the last year, he caught 103 receptions off 175 targets. So a better, completion percentage there, but only 1,144 yards and only 8 touchdowns. So like everything just dropped off considerably. The big difference, he didn't have Derek Carr, right? I mean, so quarterback play is going to be an issue. I think we get more of possibly that. Like that might be his ceiling this year. But it can honestly be worse too. Like I am slightly terrified to take him at his draft cost right now. I still think like just a pure volume play. He's going to get a ton of receptions. So in PPR formats, he's going to feel like he's done enough. But I feel like at the end of the year, we're going to look back and you're going to go, it wasn't what I paid for, right? Like it wasn't the Davante Adams we thought we were getting because the yards and the touchdowns didn't come with it. And that's what it was last year. And so I'm kind of out at draft cost with him because of this quarterback situation. I know O'Connell has some games, but let's be real.
We'll see. We'll see. AOC high right here, baby.
I mean, and I joke about Minshew because I just love his antics more than anything. But he's had some games. He's been successful, overall in the span of his career in the NFL. Obviously, he's bounced around from a bunch of different teams doing that. But I do like O'Connell too. I think he is their younger, future pick. Minshew's going to be again more of just kind of a I don't want to say vagabond, but the guy that's just like coming through the town and playing a couple one night stands and then he's going to move on to the next team. Who knows?
I mean, I'm looking at stats right now with Aiden O'Connell in last year, full PPR. Davante Adams averaged 15.9 games. With Aiden O'Connell not as quarterback, he averaged 17.9 points per game. So I'm not really sure where this is coming from. Like it just doesn't. It's not there. Like I don't. Maybe it was like maybe he had a couple good
though,
games at the end, but I don't know. It just
Yeah, I mean, I think with O'Connell, if he does end up taking over the starting gig, he's going to have some of that familiarity, whereas Minshew does not. He's coming in raw and doesn't necessarily have the relationships with these guys. So it will be interesting to see how this shakes out in camp.
To be fair, I don't think either one of them is going to really help Adams get back to where we would like to see Davante Adams.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
that's fair.
But let's move on here. We've got the tight end du jour of this draft class, Mr. Brock Bowers. Kind of a surprise pick for the Raiders. Felt like there was a lot of need on this team, and maybe tight end was not one of them, although Myers did not quite live up to the hype either. But with a guy like Bowers, the comparisons are always going to be with the, recent rookie tight end production, right? And so, immediate comparison, you go back with Kyle Pitts, right? Tight end 6, his rookie season has sort of gone downhill since then. I think we're all hoping for a bounce back this year, but that's the comparison, right? Dalton Kincaid was tight end 11 last year, even though he was, having to fight with competition with a lot of guys there, including another tight end, Dawson Knox. But then when the Knox was out, Kincaid was legit. Sam Laporta is the big outlier, in my opinion. Like, I don't know if we're ever going to see something like we saw with Laporta in another 20 years. Like, let's be real. Like, I know these guys are coming up and they're super athletic and they're super talented, but what Laporta did last year was special. And, but back to Bowers, he's going around tight end 11, back end of the 8th round in half PPR leagues. The projections that are up on the screen. JJ, what's your take on Bowers in redraft this year?
I'm okay buying on him here. I think he's going to have a pretty solid year. Like, he's part of the reason why I'm so excited about Davante Adams. The fact that defenses are going to have to try and plan for that guy as a second option instead of Jacoby Myers. He's the true Swiss Army knife. Like, you don't draft this guy to keep him inside and block the whole time. Like, you're going to move him around. He's going to be playing wide receiver. He's going to be lining up out in the slot. I think that the projected numbers there, I think that those are probably a little bit right. I could even maybe see him getting a little bit higher in the touchdowns, but like, I think Bowers is like a legitimate top 5 fantasy tight end from day one. And I mean, it sounds crazy, but I do think overall tight end 1 is in his range of outcomes. If they're just telling me he's going to sit there and just going to catch like 10, 15 little dump offs a game if they're getting beat, like, I don't know. I think Bowers could be a really, really good fantasy asset for teams this year that are willing to take that risk.
Interesting, Pat.
I'm with JJ, man. I am drinking the Brock Bowers Kool-Aid. I'm betting the over on all those projections. This is a dude who, as an 18-year-old freshman, had like almost 900 receiving yards and 13 touchdowns for the national champions. SEC Freshman of the Year, first team All SEC. Then his second and third year goes out and wins the Mackey Award back-to-back as the best tight end in the country. Like, this guy is a freak. And I mean, he is just a monster with the ball in his hands. Like, he is one of those dudes like Kittle, who's really hard to tackle. I mean, he does just go on a rampage like George Kittle. Really good against getting open, whether it's man or zone. Great hands. Man, I think he's the total package. And I actually love the pick for the Raiders. And if people want to hate on the landing spot, like, good, leave Bowers for me, because I'm definitely all in, man.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna put him somewhere, not quite at Laporta level, but I do see him falling in closer to Pitts and closer to Laporta than towards Kincaid. I like the upside here. It's kind of funny, just the fact that they went back to this tight end a second year in a row. It's like, well, we didn't get it right with Mayer. We need this guy. He's going to be the one. And I think he definitely has that potential ceiling, there for the taking. So I like Bowers this year as well.
I like the talent. I am one of the ones I don't love the landing spot, at least for year one. Dynasty, I'm all in. He almost fell to me like in the mid round of my dynasty drafts, and I was like drooling. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he's like actually gonna fall to me. And then he got picked one in front of me. I was like, "Durr, come on. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's still really hard to trust rookie tight ends. I don't care how good the landing spot is. I mean, we were all drooling over Pitts, right? And I know he had a decent first year, but like it wasn't great. And we kept buying in. We kept, no matter how much he disappointed, it was like, but it's Kyle Pitts. I feel like we're having the same discussion.
Yeah.
With Bowers, but it's Brock Bowers. Okay. And
another big SEC tight end.
Big difference is there's no Arthur Smith that's going to call and play this year. I think that was going to be a bigger issue than anything that Kyle Pitts had going on last year.
Yeah.
I don't argue with you there. Like that was a total disaster of a situation. And you know, they've already come out and said, of course, you know, can't speak, take it with a grain of salt, right? Sure. They've already come out and said they're going to run a lot of 12 personnel. They're going to, you know, feature Bowers and all these roles and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, they're saying the right things about Pitts too. Like, oh, he's lining up a receiver now. It's like, okay. I mean, he did that last year.
Yeah.
How'd that work out for him? It's like, it didn't, you know, but like, you know, I get it. The ceiling and the allure is there. Like, if you're telling me I'm having to, you know, take a choice between, you know, Njoku or Bowers or even like a Jake Ferguson, I'm probably going to have shares of all three if I'm in enough drafts, right? And that's my choice a lot. But I could see him being drafted in that position. I'm having a tough time moving him any higher than that on draft boards. All
right, fair enough. Let's talk about the last guy here for the Raiders, and that is Mr. Zamir White. He is considered to be the running back one for this team, but he's still only going as running back 24 on the draft boards so far. 80th overall, about the 708 pick is what we're looking at. So, Pat, is there something we're missing here, or is he just going too late?
It's a good question, AJ. I mean, I think he is going to be one of the guys whose ranking is probably most sensitive to training camp news of any player in fantasy football. Okay, if there's a good buzz about him, I could see him zooming into the late teens, maybe, in terms of RB rankings. And if he's, you know, they're talking about a split with Alexander Madison, I could see him getting shunned by drafters.
Yeah.
Like I like him. He's a thumper. He's this downhill runner, tough style. He could be really effective at the goal line. I don't think he's going to do anything as a pass catcher. Like the ceiling is probably like maybe 30 catches if everything breaks right, but probably not even sniffing that. And man, I don't know, because I don't think he ever had 1,000-yard rushing season even at Georgia. So yeah, like he's not really a guy I want to get too far out over my skis over in drafts right now. But if the buzz starts to build around him, I'm willing to believe it.
All right, JJ?
I don't know, man. Yeah, you're telling me that I can get Brock Bowers, but is he going 802, 803? I think I'd rather have him than Zamir White at 708 over here. It feels very Alexander Madison-esque from last year with the Vikings, where he's getting propped up just because he's the body that's there, but are we sure he's actually good? Like, why did it take Josh Jacobs getting injured and falling completely off for him to even really crack the field and get on the field consistently? So I don't know. Maybe I'm the one that's
because it was Josh Jacobs.
Yeah,
that's your answer.
Yeah, but if he's a guy that's going to plug in and be a fantasy asset, wouldn't he have had somewhat of a role like a Tajay Spears at least did last year? You know what I mean? Like, why did it take him completely falling off and out of? I don't know.
It's just how the Raiders played it, man. That's
but
just what they did with Josh Jacobs.
I could be missing something. I think this is a trap right here. There's a lot of guys going around him that I'd rather have.
Well, the other thing that I look at here too is you mentioned like why did it take so long for him to be the one? Well, the Raiders just had this stockpile of like retread running backs with Brandon Bolden and Amir Abdullah. They had White, and then finally once Jacobs got hurt, it's like, all right, which one are we going to try out? And I think it just took them a little longer to really figure it out. And it took a little longer for the offense to really get going, once O'Connell was in there too. So I think there was a lot of things at play there. It wasn't just Jacobs is injured, this guy finally shows up. So that I do like White this year. I don't know if I think he's going too late. I feel like that's probably a fair landing spot for him. Based on what we did see, I'm surprised that I haven't seen him going a little earlier than that. Just with how good he really was when he finally took off. It's that recency bias that just sits there, and it's like, okay. I mean, I've thought about it in a couple of drafts and a couple of rounds, and Scott Fish, I was like, I need something else. Like, I need other positions I got to fill or do this. And I already had, good, solid top 3 running backs. So I chose depth over it.
Yeah, I'm with you, AJ. I'm surprised he's not going earlier. I think it's just the whole Raiders aura, right? It's the quarterback situation isn't great. They're just not a good team, right? And so you think Zamir White, like, even though he's the guy, and then you add in Madison to that, that does factor into it, even though nobody likes Madison. But like, I have the stats pulled up here on the screen, and these are the splits between when the last 2 seasons when both Zamir White and Josh Jacobs played, and when Jacobs was out. Granted, it's a small sample size, but Zamir White averaged 99 yards without Jacobs, like, a game. That's pretty solid.
It's impressive.
Like, I'm looking at the points per game in half PPR, 14, full PPR only 15. To Pat's credit, no passing, no passing work for this guy, right? This is not going to happen. I believe I got that right. Who said that? But like, you telling me I can get a back who's going to average 14 points per game at RB24? I mean, sign me up. But yes, the reservations are there with everything, all of you said already. And to me, what's happened right with you, AJ, is in drafts, by the time he comes up on the board and he's like around that right time to pick, it's like, I'm either solidified at running back or, good enough. And I might need to, that round is probably where I'm targeting like a quarterback. I'm just not really going heavy with the early quarterbacks this year. And so like, I'm just targeting different positions, but if my draft played out right and I went after a QB early or a tight end early, and, maybe I went a little later with tight end, I'd be happy with White as like an RB2. I think he's got easily that upside. If like they don't completely split work between him and Madison, which of course right now is a complete unknown, but I have to believe with what we saw with Madison last year, White's going to be the primary guy. And this is what the Raiders like to do. They like to have one dude, it feels like. So, all right, moving over to the Broncos, our last team of the division here. It's slightly shorter conversation. Javonte Williams will start here. 2 years now removed from the horrible knee injury that he had. Came back last year and didn't play great, but I think played better than a lot of people expected, especially early on, right? Now that he is like an extra season removed there, going RB29 actually after Zamir White, are you buying in on this dip in value? JJ, we will start with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was the exact point that I was going to make. I was like, you're telling me I can wait a whole round and get Javonte Williams instead of Zamir White? Yeah, sign me up for that. He did. He had a horrible injury. Like, it was one of those ones that's, it's, you know, when it happened, people were saying this is probably going to be 2 years before we see him back to 100%. Looking at what he did last year, I think he went just over 1,000 yards for 5 touchdowns. I think that's going to be his floor this year in that Sean Payton offense with Bo Nix there. Now I think that so much more of the offense is going to run through him if he can stay healthy. So yeah, I'm buying the dip here. I think the 809, that's way late. RB29. There's 9-10 running backs he's going behind that I'd much rather have him.
Yeah, Javante's really interesting. I mean, man, he was so exciting early in his career. And man, I'm just thinking of a game. I want to say they were playing the Ravens, where some Ravens safety jumped on his back trying to tackle him, and Javonte literally ran like 12 yards with this guy on his back. Just this combination of power and like burst. I want to see that again. But man, it's really interesting when you kind of compare this. Like, I'm willing to believe that, yeah, like now that he's more than a year removed from the major knee injury, things are going to look better and he's going to be more efficient than last year. But the Sean Payton offense, on one hand, he was Mr. Committee always at New Orleans. You know, it was never just one guy. It was always Kamara and Mark Ingram. It was Pierre Thomas and Reggie Bush and like all these different combinations. Sometimes it was like 3 guys, but like those guys were all usually fantasy relevant. Like, he made multiple running backs fantasy relevant during his time in New Orleans. And the other thing is, like, Drew Brees always threw to his running backs a lot in the Sean Payton offense. And if you look at the percentage of like the percentages of Bo Nix targeting his running backs in college, also a total check down machine. Like, I think there are going to be a ton of running back targets and receptions for the Broncos. The annoying thing is it could get chopped up like 3 or 4 different ways. I mean, I don't think any of us want to see a 45 catch Samaje Perine season, but that could happen. But like, I mean, look at those numbers that we've got on the screen. We've got 2 different 40 plus catch seasons for Javonte. Man, if he is the majority share guy, we could theoretically see a 60, 70 catch season for Javonte, which would be pretty awesome. So I want to believe it. I mean, I think the buy-in is low enough right now that it does make a lot of sense to get him.
Yeah, I'm definitely on board with him this year. I'm not very scared of Jaleel McLaughlin and Perine, you know, jumping in. They'll get a little bit of run here and there, but if Williams is healthy, he's got to be their workhorse. He's going to be the guy that's going to get it. So I'm all in on him this year as well.
My dynasty team wants it to happen. I'm a little skeptical. Like Pat, I just think they're gonna spread this ball around. Perine's still gonna get involved. I mean, I have a story to tell you guys about him. Like, I was losing pretty big in a game last year in fantasy, and I forget which week it was now. And I had Williams, and he ended up having a pretty big game, and all I needed was like 1 catch and like 4 yards at him, or like 10 yards rushing or something the last drive. And they literally just put in Perine the entire drive, and they just kept dumping it. Perine got like 5 catches that drive, and I'm going, where's Javonte Williams? Like, what is happening? So yeah, that's going to happen a lot. And this is why Williams is down this low. It could be too low at the end of the year. We could be looking back and going, oh, but he was RB20. But man, he's just going to have games where like, it's just bad. I just feel like you're not going to want a whole lot of this team, especially the running game too. Cause like they could be down in a ton of games. And then what? They're just not going to get used. And if they do, it's in the passing game. And guess what? They apparently don't really like throwing to Javonte in the 2-minute drills or when they're having to play catch up. They like to throw it to P. Ryan. So till that changes, I'm not super interested in him. But let's move on here to just a general bucket of passing attack.
Yeah. So this one it's basically just going to be an open forum, is how I described this earlier. The question starts off, with Bo Nix as the likely starter. We don't have Jerry Jeudy in town anymore. So is this finally where Courtland Sutton has his moment to shine as a wide receiver one? Pat, we'll start with you.
I just don't know if he's that high target volume guy or if he's more the deep threat guy. I mean, I think looking at these projections, I think it looks pretty accurate as far as this being a really messy situation. And I just can't. There's no one here I can confidently invest it. Like we might be tempted by Bo Nix played with Troy Franklin in college. They've got established chemistry.
Yeah.
Troy Franklin was the main guy, but like, do we really want to spend even like a final round pick in like an 18 round, 12 team draft on Troy Franklin? Like, I feel like there are better ways to go with an 18th round pick. So, yeah, man, I have Sutton in the fishbowl. I did get him there. He lasted really late, but man, I'm just not eager to invest.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Troy Franklin and that chemistry. I'm a big chemistry guy. I love that, dual drafting that they did there. But we also have Marvin Mims there. There's also Greg Dulcich. Is this the year he finally lives up to the hype? JJ, anything on any of these other guys that you think they're, worth a dart throw?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sutton at price right now, I think he's fine. If you plug him in as like a flex or wide receiver 3, I think that he's going to be good enough that you can get by there. Outside of that, like I was a little bit lower on Mims when he's coming in. I don't think I have him in a single league, which is crazy with how many dynasty leagues I play in. So I'm kind of out on him. I think Troy Franklin's kind of an interesting dart throw in best ball leagues. Tim Patrick, if he can actually stay healthy, like that's the guy that had hype.
Sure, that's another.
I've always
stay upright. Dulcich had a little bit of hype there, but I don't know. I feel like this is kind of a passing game that, like, as far as receivers go, unless I'm getting Sutton the sliding late, I'm probably just going to be out on this one. I think that it's too much of this is going to run through the running game and the short stuff that I think it's going to be tough to count any of these guys except for Sutton.
Yeah. By the way, I want to say Dulcich just had some sort of foot procedure done last month.
Yeah.
And they're kind of dicey. Yeah, it's like fogging on his availability for training camp.
That one.
Yeah.
That guy, man. And he had hammies last year. Last year was hamstrings with issues.
Yeah, he's never healthy. I mean, I feel like I just read something just about his health in general, but I must have glossed over that latest thing. So definitely good input.
Yeah.
Joe?
Yeah, I mean, look, we took the whole question out about the quarterbacks here because it was like, I mean, it's going as like QB, Bo Nix is going to like QB 30. Like, that's not really super relevant. Like, nobody cares, right? But it's more like the impact that they're going to have on these guys. And I think we're seeing that in a Courtland Sutton ADP of wide receiver 48 and half PPR leagues. You give him even, you give him a, I don't know, who's I'm blanking on the name of the Vikings, not JJ McCarthy.
Addison.
You give him a Sam Darnold, right?
Oh,
you give him Daniel Jones. You give him Russ Wilson. We might be putting Courtland Sutton 10 spots higher, right? Somebody who I think has played. We've seen him. They're not great, right? Russ Wilson was great, but not so much anymore.
Wilson was the one thrown to him last year.
I get it.
And he did pretty
it was
pretty
better last year, right?
Yeah.
want to play a little game with you guys though with Sutton, because Sutton for real is like the only receiver I'm even remotely interested in on this team. His ADP. Would you rather have Brian Thomas Jr. or Cortland Sutton?
Redraft, I'll go Sutton.
Yeah. Okay. Brian Thomas Jr. is going ahead of him right now. Would you rather have Jamison Williams or Cortland Sutton?
Sutton.
Same.
Williams.
Okay, he's going one ahead. How about Keon Coleman?
Coleman.
In redraft?
Yeah, I'll go Coleman there. I think he's going to have a better year than people are expecting.
I love Coleman, but I'd still go Sutton, I think.
I think I'd
Okay.
go Sutton in that case.
Now, a little bit more interesting ones, I think. Odunze.
Sutton.
Sutton for redraft.
Yeah, same. Sutton.
Odunze's ADP is 40, wide receiver 41. Sutton's is 48. 2 full rounds.
Sutton's 48, you said?
Yeah.
Whew, I will have 0 him this year. That's way too high.
Wide receiver 48?
Oh, wide receiver. I think you're talking about 48
He's
overall.
round 9. He's like the
Oh,
very last
okay.
pick of round
Yeah,
9.
that's okay then.
I
I
mean,
think
so
40
we're
overall.
talking Xavier Worthy, Lad McConkey, Christian Watson, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Brian Thomas Jr., Keon Coleman are like the 8 or 9 ahead of him, immediately ahead of him. I mean,
Thomas is the only one that I would really consider ahead of him, and that's a coin flip for me for those two.
yeah, I mean, JSN kind of, but it's still busy there. I'm still a semi-believer of Lockett. I don't think he's really going anywhere, and that's just crowded. But I mean, we know he's good. It's just very interesting to see how Bo Nix and Zach Wilson are really just plummeting the value of a Cortland Sutton, who pretty damn good year last year. I get it was very touchdown heavy. It was 10 touchdowns, but I mean, you'll take
That's
it,
all right.
right?
But if he regresses to 8, I'm still happy.
Yeah, and give him a few more receptions here, some more yards. I think that's very possible. So, all right, so that's it here for the teams. We finish off each of these division draft guides here with a single question, and it's our wild card player of the division, and how we have been defining this is just somebody who's got a wide outcome of ranges. And so somebody, and you can decide how or why you pick the player. It's somebody who could be a league winner or a complete bust, right? And that's kind of their wide outcome of range, or whatever it is in your head. And Pat, we will start with you.
All right. First of all, let me preface this. I checked the Greg Dulcich news. Not a foot. It was a hamstring issue.
Oh,
I don't want to mislead the viewers. And optimism, he'll be ready for camp. So, but he's not my answer here. Greg Dulcich is not my potential league winner. I'm going to go with Brock Bowers.
Okay.
Because, like JJ and I are both just over the moon excited about him. But let's acknowledge the bleak history generally of rookie tight ends in the NFL, and entirely possible he could go the way of, this is going way back, but like Kyle Brady with the Jets, or, some of the guys. Was Tyler Eifert a first rounder for the Bengals back in the day? Like there've been some major OJ Howard.
Yeah.
So let's not ignore some of these highly touted tight ends who have gone belly up in their rookie years. So there is a non-zero chance that Brock Bowers is a rookie bust. But I think he could also be like,
chance.
I think he could also give us a Sam Laporta type season.
Fair.
Yeah.
JJ, who's yours?
So Bowers was in the mix for me here, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper here. And if this guy hits, it will be the reason that Javonte Williams doesn't. And Notre Dame fans, calm down. It's not Audric Esme. It's my boy Jaleel McLaughlin. If you're telling me that guy ended up with 85 to 90% of the Kamara role and was running back 11 to finish the year, I would not be surprised. If you're telling me that he can't even get on the field and Samaje Perine has all the backup work, wouldn't surprise me either. But where he's going in drafts, like, I will take that risk. He's one of those few guys that when you turn on the tape from last year and you just pure eye test, like, the dude has it when he has the ball.
Yeah.
He's explosive. I mean, Sean Payton kind of seems like the stubborn type. They're like, I don't know if I want this running back that we drafted. He'll do the undrafted guy that I can make look good. So Jaleel McLaughlin, where he's going, he's basically free in drafts. He legit like league winning upside if he turns into like 80% of what Kamara was in that role. So yeah, give me Jaleel McLaughlin. Nice low upside risk or high upside, low risk play.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no bust potential with him because he's so cheap. But I see it. I see the league winning potential there. AJ, who's yours?
I mean, you're asking me to pick a player. I want to just pick the 3 teams that we've recently talked about that we didn't start the show with. It's almost like this is the new AFC East where the Patriots just steamroll because all the other teams suck for decades. So that would be the initial thought, but I'm going to go with Herbert here. Kind of touched on it earlier. I think that even with, the new coordinator and Roman and bringing his boys in the running back room with Edwards and Dobbins, I think that familiarity will help him, and he'll be able to free that up, or the 2 running backs will be able to free up Herbert to operate, and in this offense. And I'm hoping for Dobbins to be healthy this year. I do want to see him have a successful season. It's just been so disappointing, as a Ravens watching, supporter and everything, and just he needs to be on the field. So I think Herbert's going to be my, boomer bust pick for this.
All right. So I'm going to get slammed again, I'm sure, in the comments, but I'm going back to the Kelce well. Look, the draft cost is still pretty high, right? And for a guy who, I mean, there were weeks last year where it was like, what the hell just happened, right? And we're all saying we could get more of that. You kind of playing almost like the NBA type game, oh, we're going to save you for the playoffs. Is he turning into LeBron of the NFL? He's just going to wait for the playoffs to turn it on. And he was amazing in the playoffs this past year. For real, he was awesome. There were so many games last year, especially near the end. 5 receptions, 28 yards, no touchdowns. 5 receptions, 44 yards, no touchdowns. That was playoff time. He lost you your leagues, because you invested a first-round draft pick in him, if you even got there with him, because he was not the Travis Kelce we all remembered, right? Now, would it surprise me if he goes out and busts out and, does what he did 2 years ago, and he was the tight end 1 by such a large margin? He's a league winner. Absolutely not. But we could also see where you invested a late second, early third on him, and he returns tight end 7, 8 value, because there are a lot of good up and coming tight ends that I think could easily pass him, if just everything kind of plays out right. And we talked about how the receiving room is going to be a little bit more crowded, especially if Rice does not get suspended for a majority of the season. So I think Kelce has that, big, wide range of outcomes, and he's my wild card player of this division. So,
Joe, I won't draft Kelce because his draft cost is too high. Also, Joe, I love Kelce this year.
What?
Good stuff.
Sure.
You did get that?
No. All right. Okay. Well, anyway.
Play both sides of the fence. You're never wrong, right?
Yeah. Well, that's true. That is true.
Anyway. All right. So that's it for the AFC West Draft Guide. Want to thank both of you for coming on. And before we let you go, give you a chance to let everybody know where they can find you and what you got going on this season. Pat, we will start with you.
Yeah, go check out fantasypros.com. Hit up the Fantasy Pros Dynasty Podcast, the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast, and find me on Twitter at Fitz_FF. Joe and AJ, thanks a lot for having us on. And JJ, great chopping it up with you too, man.
Yeah. And JJ, what about you, man?
Yeah, so follow me on Twitter at DinoNFL. I mean, everything I put out comes through Fantasy Six Pack. I'll be back on the channel here again next week, breaking down the NFC East. I don't remember off the top of my head who's coming on with me on that one, but that's my division. I'm a Cowboys fan, so I'm excited to get in there. And
you're going to be battling with
weeks, I'm sure.
This is going to be a fun one. So we've got Commanders, Eagles, Cowboys, and then we've got Mr. Rudy Gamble, the Giants fan.
Ooh, nice.
I did not plan
We're
it that way.
well represented. I love it.
That was pretty fantastic, actually. So that'll be a fun one. So all right, guys, thank you, and we will definitely have to do it again soon.
Okay, definitely.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
All right, so that's it for the show. We are back next week, as JJ was alluding to, with Rudy Gamble and JJ doing the NFC East. And unless you got anything else to add, I think we can close it out, AJ.
No, I'm good.
All right, let's do it. I got to find the buttons. Again, Mike, you usually do this. All right.
And
see you guys.